Welcome to Texas Truck Channel. I'm Craig. We're at the North Texas Auto Show here in Dallas, and with me I have Bo, product specialist of Toyota, and behind me we have the first ever, not the all-new, first ever 2023 Toyota, make sure I get this right.
bZ4X.
Okay, well let's just start there.
Yeah.
BZ, Beyond Zero?
Beyond Zero.
Now, is this the first of many BZs coming, or is this the only BZ version we're going to have? How does that work?
So there's going to be an entire promise that Toyota has done. It's going to be carbon neutrality by 2050. The next couple of years, Toyota will be receiving multiple platforms based on what's called the BZ. So Beyond Zero. Zero is about emissions. As you know, we're tried and true when it comes to the Prius, partial emission or hybrid vehicles.
Right.
This one's specific to having zero emission whatsoever. All electric, and you plug it in.
So this is, yeah, all electric. There's no hybrid here. It's not a Prius. This is all electric, battery electric vehicle. We like to call it BEV. So it's more endearing, I think. I think BEV's more endearing.
BEV's a good word.
But so let's continue that. 4X, what's the 4X for? Do we know? Or?
So it'd be across the board, it's about a platform. So ultimately this is a compact crossover into a mid-size crossover. The BZ format or the BZ lineup over the next couple of years will involve different sizes and shapes based on that one platform.
So you might see 3X or 5X or something like
2X,
that.
3X, 4X, but it's just too early to tell. In terms of the bZ4X though, it'll be out this summer. It is an all-electric vehicle with a range up to 250 miles of distance.
Okay, I like the way. Okay, I like the way that's said. Okay, well, let's kind of walk around it, and I'll have a few more questions for you later. But let's. I want to start right here. We got this really interesting inlet. I assume there's a lot of aero all over this car, and you can just speak to what you can. Is that what that's for? Is that styling?
So ultimately it's about body to weight ratio when it comes to aerodynamics. Unlike a sports car or a performance vehicle, the vehicle has to cut through the air in order to get its good MPG. In this case, it's range. You're talking about a vehicle that would have what's called an MPGE, miles per gallon equivalent. So anything that can be sculpted off design-wise throughout the entire design can actually add to that. Whether it be vortices generators or a scooping through this in the area, it's going to cut through the air in a very good way and balanced out with the MPGE, it's going to get some really good distance.
And we should mention before we get any further, this is a joint venture or partnership with Subaru, correct?
That's correct.
Subaru Solterra and the Toyota bZ4X.
That's correct. And under the paradigm of having done a partnership already, the 86 several years ago, while under the umbrella of Scion, was known as the FRS. The FRS, front-mounted rear-wheel sport vehicle, was a partnership with Subaru. Subaru's contracted to do a boxer engine for that vehicle. As you know, it's the 86 now. So our partnership and our heritage with Subaru was tried and true. Consumers liked it. Safety and reliability over time is always the credo of which Toyota stands by, and something like this was just another way of doing that. So another partnership with Subaru.
Let's continue over this way a little bit, because I want to talk about something down here. In the U.S., we got this great license plate bracket. There's nowhere to put it. You got to put it somewhere. So we get it. And then down here, this is interesting. On a lot of EVs, you just see a completely flat nose with no inlets. Is this for cooling for the battery, or do you know?
It'll ultimately be for the undercarriage area. So as you're scoping through, it would be associated with that. Also, yes, in this front area, you would have the electric motor, which would need cooling throughout.
And I'm glad you mentioned the front area. So we don't have a frunk under here. We actually have the actual power unit.
That's correct.
Okay.
The actual motor itself is there as well.
And speaking of power unit, is this is there two options, a front wheel drive and an all-wheel drive, or how does that work?
As of right now, it's just a front wheel drive. The all-wheel drive system that's associated down the line would be released later on. However, the range of 250 is only associated with the front wheel drive.
Okay, so that's this one right here.
And when the all-wheel drive vehicle is released, specifically under bZ4X, we will know another range. It might be a little bit less, but that's just through guesstimation, not necessarily fact.
We'll know until it comes out. But that'll be a dual motor unit, the all-wheel drive one.
As of right now.
This is a single motor unit.
At this current time, we don't know.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, before we go any further, Bo, history of EV, give us a little bit of the background on that.
So the history of EV, as we know with Toyota in the history, it's always been about safety and reliability over time. Toyota doesn't necessarily ever need to be the first to the marketplace. They will, however, try to be the longest lasting and the safest over time. Toyota no longer needs to necessarily be the first to the market. They want to be the longest lasting over time.
Like the Prius.
That's correct. Also, this vehicle is the third time Toyota has actually done an all-electric vehicle. So the first one would have been done as a partner back in the late 90s. It was a RAV4 all-electric.
That's right.
RAV4 all-electric was done in the late 90s. Then they sunsetted that version. Then by 2012, we had done a partnership with a new company called Tesla. It was a 44 kilowatt hour battery, and it was associated with having an all-electric range of 113 miles of distance. Now, in the year 2022, as a 23, we have ourselves a 250-mile range with the bZ4X. So this is our third official time coming back.
Gotcha.
In terms of charge time, the charge time of this vehicle would be up to 80% in 1 hour. So within an hour and 20, it's going to be 100% charge for another 250 miles of distance.
Okay, that's actually pretty good. 100% charge time. That's really quick, because 80% usually happens quick. But that next full charge usually takes a minute, and that's not that bad.
Yeah, so I think an hour and a half at the most.
Very, very good. And that's on a, obviously, DC fast charging,
That's
of
correct.
course. So, okay. Let's get into styling a little bit more, because we noticed on the Subaru and the Toyota, a similar theme. Subaru seems to be just like a flat black here, but Toyota, I like this version actually a little bit better on the Toyota. It's more of a glossy metallic, but this is different than that. We notice it doesn't match. It's not just a fender flare either. It's just actually just a different color.
Yes.
And is that what's the backstory there? Do we
There's
know?
no official answer other than that it would be a design choice that many people thought long and hard on to create a beautiful aesthetic for the entire side of the vehicle.
Probably lots of debate about that, but they landed on this.
Yes.
Okay. So there we are.
And we stand behind it with pride.
Okay. To the charging port itself, because we get comments on this. Why is it in the front? Why is it in the back? Any reason as to why it's in the front? Is it just because that's better for people to pull up to versus backing in, or is that's just where it ended up?
So ultimately, there's no official Toyota answer for that. It would be design choice and/or heritage of maybe an overhang here, or if you were in your carport, let's say, or actually outside, if you will, this would be the side that would be protected. Do that, but there's no official Toyota answer. It would just be design choice and heritage based on the actual driver.
Gotcha. Just curious. So, all right, as we're continuing to walk around and pay special attention to the top here, it's black to give it a different look. I like that. But also it slopes down pretty good, and you can see there's actually more of a spoiler here than you realize on camera. That's quite a bit, but it doesn't go all the way through. I'm sure, again, for aero, I'm sure some styling, some aero. I don't know if there's any official word on that. Let's move to the back, though, the styling in the back. It's definitely a Toyota. We can tell it's a Toyota. It looks kind of Venza-y. We've got the LED strip all the way across. And then I don't know if you helped with, I like this 80s retro taillight here. I mean, that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I went back to the 80s, the 1980s, and I came back and I gave these specifically to the North Texas Auto Show.
Very good.
Yeah, no, it's an LED system. It's the future. We're gonna look like it, right?
Yeah.
And it harkens back to the 1980s for sure.
And the theme of the black kind of intersecting with the other colors continues from the front to the back. So that's pretty interesting. And as we move around to the back, we have a nice diffuser, again, all for airflow. They did think this through. It also looks kind of cool. So that's the advantage of designing for aero. You get some styling built in. Can we open this? Oh, we can. Very good. And so
it's our power lift gate.
Power lift gate, nice. And so a typical hatchback, despite it having the battery, the battery's very low in the car, it seems like.
Yes, it'll be associated with the center of the platform itself.
So we get a low floor, we get plenty of space. It's a very versatile hatchback. The seats fold down, I presume, get you a pretty flat floor.
Flat floor.
All right, we're continuing into the inside of this pre-production bZ4X, and we're one of the first to be able to sit in this thing. Thank you, Bo. Appreciate that.
That's correct.
But Bo's got a lot of pull at Toyota, so. Let's start over on your side, though. We've got an interesting instrument cluster up front and out towards the instrument panel, the locale. Very easy to see out. I guess that was intentional. Was that by design?
This is associated with keeping the consumer or the driver's eyes on the road. So over time, Toyota has slowly brought everything up closer to the eye line of the actual street itself.
It does seem higher, yeah.
You know, we do have on other vehicles, your head-up display, where literally will project it onto the windshield. Where in this case scenario, our partnership with Subaru would be associated with bringing these screens closer to the eye line of the road. It keeps the consumer safe.
Gotcha. And I noticed y'all went with a traditional steering wheel versus we've seen in some other prototypes the yoke. The yoke is gone. Looks cool, but not practical. Steering wheel. I'm glad y'all went with that. So great job.
It's a traditional and/or classic, if you will.
Oh, classic. I like that. I like classic. Okay, I like classic.
Yes.
Moving on to the center stack. Let's go there. This has got the new Toyota infotainment, like we've seen in the Tundra. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So kind of the same setup. It's just more horizontal.
Same setup, more of a cinematic experience here. You're going to have the JBL speaker system. You have Sirius XM. You have Gracie Note, all of these things associated. Center console also comes down here with what's called a cascade, if you will, into Qi wireless charging. You'll be able to place your handheld device there. It would green light through it, through the actual system. It fits perfectly, closing it there, and it would illuminate through the actual
So, and I don't know if you can catch it on camera, Brian, but you can see we got the continue the '80s theme with the you can see through it. Pretty cool, pretty interesting.
Cool.
So
it has its own panoramic moonroof, which leads us to the actual ceiling itself. You'll see the panoramic moonroof, of course, for the entire front and back seat is associated with this vehicle.
Very good. So, and that's one of the things that Toyota designed. They want someone to be in this, and they want to have their friends. You can talk, you can hear each other, and see each other comfortably, and all that fun
Absolutely.
stuff. So, and different shifter style than we're used to seeing in Toyota. That was in partnership with Toyota, I guess, along with X mode we see for the first time in Toyota in partnership with Subaru. So that's pretty neat.
And it's always been a toggle button when it comes to these kind of systems, whether it be the Prius system or the bZ4X. It's always going to be a simple toggle right to left or turn or left, so you actually get that.
And just a simple PRND, nothing crazy. And then I do like we have actual physical buttons here to adjust. I don't know if that's fan speed or HVAC, but then here we have soft touch. I presume there's more options here. Is what that's
for. So it's the best of both worlds when
Okay.
it comes to both the physical, if you will, analog-based buttons versus the actual touchscreen itself.
Gotcha. And another interesting feature I want to point out in the interior before we get out of here is I love this the warming effect that the fabric dash does. You know, in most dashes you get that plastic, fake leather looking feel. It's a little more cold and stark. This makes it a little warm, and I like that. So that's an interesting choice.
Well, it's definitely a design choice that would add to the texture and the look and the feel of the actual vehicle itself. When you pair it with the leather system as well as this, it's the best of everything.
Very good. All right, in closing, Bo, we thank you for showing us around the 2023 Toyota bZ4X. And it's a mid-size crossover battery electric vehicle, or BEV, like we talked about. And let's just kind of recap: 250-mile driving distance.
That's correct.
Full 80% charge in an hour and 20 minutes full charge.
That's correct. Yeah.
And at first it'll be front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive later. This is of course a prototype model, so if you see something different than that, that's what this is. It's just prototype. Pricing and availability, what can you reveal on that?
So we know early summer. When it comes to this vehicle, it'll be out in the summer. Between now and then, you'll be hearing about the all-wheel drive version and its range. We believe it'll be a little bit less than 250 miles of range, but it's too early to tell.
Sure. And just on one last thing, do we have any horsepower numbers yet, or is that not available?
Horsepower is associated with the actual press release that they can find on the newsroom.
Okay, very good. With that, thanks for watching Texas Truck Channel. Be sure to tune in and subscribe for the latest and greatest, and thanks for watching.
Thank you.